the toughest part in this journey is loving yourself enough to be okay with failure. And I don't like, there's just so much shame and expectations in our society to be the person that has to do everything, be the mom, the house manager, the entrepreneur, and think she has her stuff figured out. And it's like, the reality is nobody's got it figured out. Nobody does. Like, I remember when I was running my agency and I had a team of 12, I would show up to the office and every morning I'd be like, morning guys, I don't know what I'm doing today, but have a good day. And like, it was a joke as like the CEO founder of coming into a $1 million agency. But inside I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. And I like, right. It's like 2 minutes before a huge sales call or client call. I was like, nope. You know, so the reality is like, you know, be okay with those imperfections, and no one knows what they're doing. And if you ever met a mom who genuinely believes that she has her stuff together, I want to meet her.
I know. Well, I just think they're liars if they think they have all their
they're
stuff
such
together.
Liars. They're either liars or narcissists. It's one or the other.
Or maybe they like, you know, found, because I think no one knows what they're doing. I think that's so true. Often when I walk into my business, I feel the same way, or I'll say the same thing. I'm like, who put me in charge? I don't know why you're all looking at me to solve the problem.
Well, and I will say this, the people that claim to know what they're doing are probably coming from a mediocre mindset, because they're not trying new things. They're not reading the books. They're not pushing themselves forward. That makes any sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Yeah. And I think that just as we figure out what we know that we're doing, whether it's with parenting or scheduling our families or business or whatever, as soon as we get to that level of comfort is when I think we just kind of should bump forward. And so the second I think I have something figured out, I just assume that it just means there's something new on the other side for me to now figure out.
Right. You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And like, even as like a good parent, even as a good entrepreneur partner, is you have to be educating yourself and understanding. It's like, this is the capacity of what I know about this given subject, and I have a problem with this, then I know that there's a room for improvement. And I think that gap is often where a lot of women in running businesses and being mothers to start to feel like they doubt themselves.
Yeah. And I think what's gotten me through those times is knowing how and when to ask for help.
Yeah.
And from who, you know, how can I ask for help from people who know more than me about that one particular topic or subject, so that I can grow faster and get coaching from them.
Can we jam on that for one moment?
Yeah, of course.
Because it's so easy to say ask for help, but most of the time women don't even know what questions to ask.
Yeah.
And they're intimidated, think, oh, who's going to help me? Or why would they want to talk to me? Let me tell you, anytime I've had an issue in the parenting world and there was somebody, whether in my network or some acquaintance that I knew had the answer to this or has been through it before, I just reached out from a place of love and like, hey, I remember this, my friend, Natalie, I was like, hey, Natalie, I'm having problems with Max. Here are the symptoms. And I know that you actually took a year off to homeschool your son. Can we chat? Can we just jump on a phone call? And like, most people are willing to help. And she did. And we chatted for an hour and got so much help. And so it's easy to say, just ask for help, but sometimes we don't know what we need to be asking for. Mm-hmm. And I think like really diving in about, it's like, what do I actually need help? Because when you can actually hone in on specific things that you need help with, that will allow you to find the right person to ask the right question to get the solution that you need.
Yeah. So I have a method for doing that actually while you're saying this, because I think you're right. A lot of us don't know how to ask for help. Every day at the end of the day, when I before I retire for the night or when I'm kind of winding my day down, I write down, where was I uncomfortable today? And I reflect on that. And like, sometimes it's as simple as my bra or my shoes were clicking on the floor. Like, that's one thing that came up a few times, is we have these beautiful hardwood floors in my office and it's so loud the way my shoes click on them. I was like, oh, I can't stand it. It drives me crazy. But other times it's uncomfortable because it's like, I'm worried that like one of my kids is struggling at school with friends and I don't know what to do about it. Or I'm worried about like whatever's coming up for me and where was I uncomfortable in my body? Where did I not feel like I had something handled? Where did I get kind of like sweaty palms or that anxious feeling? And just by reflecting on that every day, then I start to see patterns. And then I know what I have as like what's not working. And then who can I ask for help? And that's been a huge thing in knowing, like you say, like if you're having problems, because they don't usually show up just all at once in one beautiful little wrapped package, like at 3:00 on Tuesday, you know?
At least you're prepared for it. Pour a glass of wine before it shows up.
Yeah,
we're good.
No, usually like when you're struggling as a mom, it's these little things that you can't figure out, like, why are lunches hard for me to make? It's not just one day they're hard to make. Like I struggle with getting lunches ready for my kids for school. Years ago, I was like, that was always a stress in the morning. Like, oh crap, I forgot to make them a lunch. So, you know, but it when I wrote down, hey, I'm struggling getting lunches. Oh, that means I should start a habit of making them the night before. And then also, how can I delegate some of this to the kids? And so I put like their snacks where they could reach them. They packed their own lunch, and all I packed was like the main sandwich or the wrap or whatever it was that they couldn't do on their own when they were little. So I think it's the step before even asking for help is being aware of what are we not so equipped to handle so well.
And what do we need? Like I remember, so my husband and I, we see a couples therapist when things are good, when things are bad. And we had the same scheduled time with her. And I remember showing up for the first few sessions individually and together. And I kept showing up with the same kind of baggage. And she's like, I don't think this is a relationship thing. This is a you thing. And you need to fix that about yourself with somebody else or with me before you can fix the relationship thing. It turns out it was never the problem with the relationship, as most things aren't. It was a problem with me. And so not having that perspective now, I'm thinking, oh, you know, we're fighting in a relationship, but that wasn't it. It was me. There was the thing with me. And it ended up being my lack of confidence, my resentment. But why? Right. And so then when I worked on that, my relationship was like perfect.
Yeah.
And so when we look at these, like asking for help, it's like, do I really need help with, you know, nighttime routine with the kids, or is it something more than that? Right. And so really looking deep, asking the 5 whys, like why this, why actually helps a lot. And we do that with my son, Max, whenever he's having like a little episode, we ask the 5 whys and it helps. Like we get to the root of what actually is the issue behind him being angry. And it wasn't the fact that I said no to him having a cookie. It went further down to a point of like, oh, I didn't know this had anything to do with the fact that your blankie was in the wash and you wanted it, right? Like it's not
totally.
And it's not the no to the cookie.
Your blankie isn't here.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh wow, okay. Yeah. So making sure you really understand what you need help with, and then asking the question around that is a game changer.
Yeah. And I also find I use the same systems in my business as I do in my life on a regular basis, but I also find it goes the reverse way as well. Like what's true when raising kids is also very true in running a business.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you have team and staff and like with kids, you just kind of have to pick your family rules and then repeat them over and over again. And we decide, I always think as a parent, when we're picking rules, we decide what we tolerate, right? Like we're willing to, there's things that I'm willing to tolerate with my children because it just doesn't bug me. And there's things I'm not willing to tolerate. For example, I hate whining, like whiny, meow, 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 meow. Like anything that comes at me with a whiny voice drives me bananas. Yeah. So my kids know not to whine. Like I just looked back at them and I was like, no whining, none of that. But I don't mind persistence because I value persistence so very much. So if they ask me the same thing 55 times, they might actually get what they're looking for because I don't mind the persistence as much. And so my kids don't whine, but they're pretty persistent to ask over and over again if they really, really want, like whatever it is, a sleepover, something for dinner or whatever it might be. And I think that the skills that we learn in parenting apply to our businesses. And I think the skills we learn in business can easily apply to our family lives and at home.
Yeah, I think so too. And especially with compassion, like how you would approach a child to overcome a problem is with ease and compassion. Maybe those same rules apply to people on your team. or, partners or whatever, vendors, is leading with compassion. So it's true.
Yeah.
Those same rules apply the other way. I like that.
Yeah, totally. And just like you have two kids that are 11 months apart, I'm guessing they have two very different personalities and two very different sets of needs, two very different ways of going about doing life, which is also true when we run businesses, that not all team are the same, or vendors or people that we're working with. Like, I think I've learned from my children. I've learned more from my children than I have anyone else in the world, just in how they're such amazing teachers.
They are. They really are. It's crazy. We have some behavioral issues with one of my children, and potentially, we haven't got him tested yet, but potentially he could be on the spectrum, which we don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But he's a unique child. I love him. But it's definitely testing my patience and my ability now to balance the mom worry, the fact that we're homeschooling him full time and working on my business full time, and my other child being in a school. So there's just a lot going on. But the lessons in that, and I think about like the times of running my business, kids are a forcing function for you to get as productive as you can in the time that you're given. And so when people say, oh, I can't run my business and have babies, I'm like, yes, you can. If you structure it well, you can totally do this, because kids, are human alarm clocks. So they're mostly predictable when they're going to wake up, right? So you can structure your day around that. And knowing at the end of the day, if your kids are in daycare or school, you only have these like 8 hours to get your work done. The people that were single, because I know I was once there running my business, would get up whenever and they would work till whenever. You don't have that with kids, but it forces you to be super focused and constrained on the things that you actually do take on in the day. They've taught me that.
Yes, mine have definitely taught me the same thing. Especially when they were littler and they needed more hands-on, like mine right now don't need as much hands-on time. They can get their own snack. They can get their own, like make their own, they bring me tea if I need it, like it's a little bit different for me now than when they were younger. But when they were younger, I also learned a lot at night. So I would like run my business during the day when the kids were at school. And then I would have learning to do at night because I had to take classes or courses or whatever it was to be able to go back and run my business the next day. Because frankly, I didn't exactly know what I was doing. And I just got really, really finite about the activities that ended up in my life as well. Like who was in my life, or where I spent my time, or what was important to me. Like exercise was important, so I made time for that. But I didn't really foster a lot of like deep friendships at the time because it wasn't that important to me. I picked my like 3 or 4 good friends and I just went in on those friendships. And I didn't do like, if it was like, oh, we're going on a girls' weekend, I'd miss that because it wasn't as important as raising my kids, building my business, what had to happen there.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's like, and plus you're so exhausted at the end of the day. You just can't.
I know.
There's
Sleep
nothing left to give.
My mom always used to say, I have insomnia. And I was like, how can you be tired? My head hits a pillow and like one of those little dollies, my eyes close. Like, I don't understand how you're not tired enough to sleep.